Hey, what's up everybody? BDF 44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so I don't know what I'm going to say as usual. Never have a script. Making another therapy session, probably a record 6 in 3 days or something like that. I don't know how many I've made lately. And it goes like that sometimes. Not just in regards to this particular type of thing, but just everything I do. I remember there was one week where I did almost 100 art pieces. I remember it was a specific month. I think it might have been December this past year where I did like 40 playlists that month. Normally I won't do but maybe like maybe 12 a month or something like that, 10 a month, if that. So it just happens like that sometimes, where at certain points in my life I just put a little more emphasis on what it is that I'm consistently doing. Just weird like that. Remember once when I was in the thick of jogging a lot every day, jogging, sometimes twice a day. No more than as long as probably the longest I had went before this particular thing I'm about to say. Probably the longest I jogged anywhere from 30 to 35 minutes. But when I went to Bally's one particular day, for whatever reason, I had just bought my iPod Shuffle. I was able to put it in my ear and literally jog for about 1 hour and 10 minutes with nonstop without even getting tired. Now, I conditioned myself for only half of that, but for whatever reason that particular day, I was just able to keep the pace necessary to not lose anything. And I guess I conditioned myself every way necessary to be able to take on a test like that. It's the only time I ever did it. It's the only time I ever felt that strong to do it. But the point was just similar to this thing I've been telling you about. It's like some days I could just do 3 times more than I've ever been able to do, so long as it's something that I always do. Yesterday, for example, I added an extra couple sets to my squat routine. So it's like that was more or less my career high yesterday. Even though I wasn't feeling good, I pushed myself to do that because I wasn't feeling good. And hours later, I felt great, which is not even a point of it. But, I just tend to have that in me. So I guess that's a reflection of what all this is. So many therapy sessions, so little time. It's more of that trait. But I think what prompted me to turn on the camera was just feeling the peace that I felt before I went to sleep last night after I made the therapy session and listened to it. Really thankful that I was able to hear what Kai had to say. Really thankful that I had turned my day around as it pertains to my mindset. Just remember what the Lord kind of put in my heart before I went to sleep last night, some things that I didn't put into the therapy session. But it was a big part of what it is that was said there that I wanted to just reiterate into the camera for everybody else, and that was no fear. My initials obviously stand for my name, BDF, but I've turned it into a bunch of stuff, acronyms that you could turn it into. Some of them I wouldn't dare say because obviously the brain can go in a million different ways, and I'm pretty sure if I ever get to be popular enough, people will take that name and do horrible things with it because it's just so easy to do. So I'm just aware, but nevertheless, what I like to say in regards to my initials is blessed divine faith, which is what I hope to be able to apply in my life, which is what I try to apply into my life. And boldly dominating fear. That is exactly what BDF is supposed to stand for, amongst other things too. But boldly dominating fear, blessed divine faith, and a bunch of other dysfunctional stuff that you probably should not be saying. But the truth of the matter is that's what I try to apply, and it's one of the things that he said last night, no fear. And it's one of the things I've been dealing with is fear, a great deal of it, within my anxiety, within my circumstances, within my own shortcomings and what others may think of what it is that I've ultimately failed at here or what have you, especially family members who've already helped me in the past. Fear of asking for that help again, fear of thinking that I have no plan, fear of all these different things that don't have to do with God. But I'll tell you, after I got off the camera with you guys and listened to what I had to say on the therapy session, prayed some more, I felt like I understood there was a difference between the therapy session I made in the morning when I was struggling with my feelings about what I was going through, and the moment that I was in last night after listening to all that was said by both me and Kai. I think the difference was that God wasn't in the conversation in the morning when I was making that therapy session, telling you guys how frustrated I was. He was over there. What I mean by over there is not in me when I was talking to you. I wasn't in prayer. I was in fear. I was in frustration. I was in sadness. I was in pain. Or however else you describe that. I don't often like calling that pain. I think there's a better word for it. I just don't know what the hell it is. But it ain't pain. It's a discomfort, with stress attached to it. I don't like pain being correlated with that for some reason. There's a real difference, but nevertheless, it provided a great deal of uncomfort, a great deal of negative emotional energy. And I was talking to you guys about what I was feeling and reaching out to God and maybe getting what I felt that I should receive and maybe not. But the thing was that as I was talking to you, I wasn't talking to God. I was talking about God. I was talking about God as if he was an entity on the other side of the room. And in that moment he was, because I didn't have that inside of me at the time. Now, maybe that was on me, or maybe there's something beyond my understanding. But when I went to sleep last night, it was different in regards to how I felt about where he was versus where my problems were. And so I felt like he was in the conversation last night. After all of that I had experienced in the day, after listening to what was said in the content, I just felt like there was a different spirit about me as it pertains to my approach to my problems. You know what I mean? And blessed divine faith had to be applied into my situation, and I needed to try my very best to be bold and dominate the fear that I face and allow God to be a part of the conversation instead of someone that is displaced from the circumstance. I was talking to God and he provided me this. Yeah, but are you talking to God now? Is he involved in the conversation now? And that was the difference. I think that's where I'm at now as it pertains to where I was 24 hours ago. And I was telling you guys what I was getting or wasn't getting from a conversation with God as opposed to bringing him in. I asked the Lord to touch my heart earlier in the week as I was going through what I was, expecting to be a very daunting week with the countdown of my circumstances being as it is, with the court situation having it that we're waiting on a date and all of that. I just felt like this week, as I perceived it, was probably just going to be a very tough week waiting on that or receiving that information or trying to address what needed to be addressed on my end and all of that. I just knew it was going to be a tough week. So I asked the Lord to touch my heart in some way that allows me to just feel good about something by the end of the week. I asked him for that. And I didn't know what form it would come. And it hadn't come up until yesterday. So I asked him for it again in the beginning of the day when I was in my prayer, space after I'd made the therapy session that I'm referring to, where I wasn't so positive. I went into the, my prayer space and I asked him to touch my heart again. Give me something. Maybe something that inspire me away from this mindset. And I think he did that with the video that Kai left. I think he did that. I think that was exactly what I was waiting for, to kind of turn my mind around, put my mind in a space where God isn't away from the conversation. God isn't an entity that I told you that I spoke to, and therefore this is what I came with, as opposed to an entity that I can speak with as we speak together, if he chooses to. And sometimes maybe I reach out and he may not want to be in the space I'm in at that moment, but there's a time for that, for his return to come to my life, I guess. And when that happens, I will have an understanding of what it is that I was missing in that moment. And I guess that's the best way I know how to describe it. It's not that I didn't want to talk to God when I was talking to you guys. It just wasn't hitting me like that. It just wasn't there for me to say that I could connect in that moment and feel the presence of positivity. I don't know if God has purpose for that. I feel like there's a purpose for a lot of things that may be unorthodox or may be inconvenient for a lot of us. as I was praying last night, I guess in my own way, I was able to find confirmation about the fact that I had been punished about something specific. I can't even really express to you how I came to the conclusion of this, but I came to the conclusion that one of the times that I was punched in my eye, particularly when I was at this place called the Shack, and I was acting a fool and yelling at somebody, and I told you this story maybe 5 or 6 times in these therapy sessions, so I'm sure this isn't a new story, but I got in some dude's face. I was super drunk, out of my mind, and I did not have any good energy coming out of me. I was bullying dude just out of the sheer drunkenness of my nature, and probably whatever demons was floating around in me that deserved to be hit in the face. Whatever the case may be, I ended up getting sucker punched by some random person I never actually saw. Someone that, from what I was told, was twice my size. Saw what I was doing, saw the energy I was engaging in, and came into the defense of the person I was bothering, which I would support wholeheartedly now that I'm grown enough, old enough to have healed from what happened. I don't have any bad energy for the person that hit me. I know that I have to face karma for doing that, probably already have, but no different than what I've learned, which was that punch was karma for something that I had done. I don't know what it was, but I definitely got confirmation that was punishment. Actual punishment. Last night, in that same little flurry of prayer after that video, I was saying all of that. I came to that conclusion because I was like telling the Lord, I was expressing in my own prayer space very deeply in it, how, I want to get to a point where I'm no longer paying for the sins that I was committing before I started praying for the list that I pray for, which Kyrie's included in. Not to say that I deserve anything, just hopeful that grace will be met with me, just like I hope that it will be met with you and anybody else that I pray for. I want grace because I think I can do a lot more good with grace than I can with the punishment that comes my way. I can do a lot more with God in my conversation without the fear attached to me than I can being fearful and explaining to people whatever it is that comes to mind when I'm afraid. And at the end of the day, my circumstances are the same, but what I came to terms with is that the Lord I pray to is in control of the circumstances outside of the circumstances. Just like I initially said to you guys when I was dealing with this before I started facing consequences. Yes, the people I need to pay need me to pay them, but they also need the God that I pray to. And that's what kept me kind of going and grounded in regards to staying true to what it is I was doing, even if it didn't make sense. Because I was doing it for God. No different than those push-ups I do. No different than these various arts pieces that I've done. All of that stuff is a dedication to the one that created me. And so as I stand in this space, having been frustrated because yet of another dedication I've done to him, which was holding on to these shares that I always tell you guys about and sitting in this space trying to be obedient. He's done all these things to help work on my mind and my soul. Maybe not necessarily make me feel confident in my mind being under control, but definitely working on cultivating some of its strengths just the same. And I feel much more confident that I can convey to others what it is that's in my heart. Things that I could not convey as a younger person. Things that I only had questions for when I was a younger man. Now I have things to say in regards to because of experiences that the Lord has allowed me to face. And I was sitting there listening to Kyrie Irving, and he told us how old he was at the beginning of the video. And I was, he said 30. And I was able to look back on what 30 meant to me. And I look forward and realize what's ahead of him as it pertains to just overall life. Definitely not the experiences I went through, obviously not. But just throughout the course of it, the space that he's in, you just understand that when you're about 8 or almost 9 years older than him, just what's possible as it pertains to the next phase of the life that he's in. And I'm almost inspired by the wonder of it all as it pertains to having looked back on my own life and seeing where I was at 30 and just understanding that everything I had in my head, what the Lord was going to do with it over the next 8 years, and what he was going to do with me over the next 8 years. And even though I've been through the mud, life started getting very hard for me at 30. That's when things really started becoming on me to change. I wasn't really forced to make certain types of life changes before that because I always had my mother to cover me in that way. 30 years old, I still had my mother helping take care of certain things that my anxiety just refused to allow me to handle at that time. You know, she was taking care of me because for the longest time I allowed her to. And even though I had moved out of her house and started working and all these other things, I still was going through lulls, especially when she was diagnosed with cancer, that allowed me into spaces that left me disagreeable with my very own motivational spark. I didn't want to work. I didn't want to do nothing. I was just in the same space I'm in right now, completely and utterly outside of my own control, wanting to do what I needed to do, but not being able to bring myself to it and being unhappy about it and feeling like I was a worse human for it because of what it was I was allowing my mother to do and pay for in regards to me not getting help for myself or not even knowing at the time that help was something that I needed, not seeing the correlation between my behavior and mental health concerns. And so that's where I was at 30. On my 30th birthday, my mother was still healthy enough to take me to BB King's barbecue spot. I think it was over here where was that at? Over here in Inglewood, I believe it was. I think that's where we were at. And I remember parking in a Sprouts parking lot with Mom and getting out the car and talking to her about Sprouts being her favorite place to shop and how I need to go in there and buy some stuff for myself when it's time to eat healthy. Just stuff like that, little things like that you remember because you remember you were the age that the person who was speaking to you was talking to you about, you know. So it took me back to 30, and I just remember I was like, all the different things that had to do with 30, and then I realized that when I was 30, I was in so much darkness, even though I had a relationship with God. For me, I was still wrapped up in things that were deeply childish in nature, deeply childish. You know, not knowing how to manage my energy at all, not knowing that energy needed to be managed a certain way so that I could receive the certain respect for self that I was looking for. Those concepts weren't really strong inside of me. Even though I was quote unquote grown and had been grown for 8 years. No, friends, I'm telling you that there's still childishness in me right now. And I'm going to be 39. The growth is still very much real. And for me, that's not a measuring tool for anybody else at all, but I'm just saying there's no book for this. Just because the country says we're grown at 21 doesn't necessarily mean that we're done growing at 21. And so what I'm saying is at 30, I was still very much in a childhood that had my mother wrapped in it, my childish ways wrapped into it, all kinds of different stuff that just had to be grown through at that time. And it's like, I can admire the maturity of a Kyrie Irving. I admire the pressure that he takes on being as famous as he is, having all these people apply so much to him and have been applying so much to him for years now. I think if I would have had that applied to me at 30, I probably would have been crumbling, wilding out. And that speaks to my own immaturity, but it more so just speaks to my perception of what it is they go through. And it's like, people want these guys to have this kind of stuff under control and be able to take on this type of pressure in times in their lives where if it was applied to me, it would be no way I would have behaved properly. You know, a lot of these celebrities, I look at John Morant, he's like damn near 10 years younger than Kai. You know what I mean? John's like 23. When I was 23, I was that much more immature, that much more susceptible to evil, that much more susceptible to temptation, that much more susceptible to just believing my own lies and being selfish and slow to prayer and quick to anger, all kinds of stupid stuff that hurt myself, quick to put substances in my body that were going to disrupt my mind and put me in a position to feel better about whatever it is I was feeling, but no closer to the God that wanted me to feel better. And that's what it's about. It's like, can we train ourselves sooner to change our energy? That's what I'm trying to help coerce people into, because a lot of people are much more mature than I was at 30 or 24, 23, but they are also no closer to having the answers in regards to their energy and how to welcome the best things into their lives. They're no closer a lot of times into how to provide themselves the best reflection in the mirror, one that can't be manipulated by others, one that can't be disrupted by the opinions of others. I was listening to Kyrie talk about people who hated him, you know what I mean, or disliked him and wanted to see him fall, you know. And I listened to the energy that he had for it, and he was saying, you know, I love this life, you know, in response to those people who are being negative to him and those who want him to quit. I think he was referring to also, you know, in regards to whether or not he would be able to have some people return to him. That was something I thought was interesting to me, because I often think about that too, in regards to people who've passed away and whether or not I would give my life to have them come back here. And his response is, I love my life. And I think some people are going to take that and they're going to not receive that the right way, because they're going to be like, well, that's not very unselfish. Would you not want to come back, or rather have your people come back in exchange for you? But I think it really comes down to, we're walking a path. And I speak for my own self when I consider this type of mindset. But I think I'm walking on a path to where he wants me to do specific things that I got to do. And so if I try to exchange my life for my mother's life just out of sheer love for her, he didn't really have a purpose for her in 2023. Now, that's not something that makes me feel good. As her son, I wanted her written into every day I live. But he didn't have any plans for her in 2023. You see what I'm saying? He had plans for me to be alive in 2023. People he wanted me to reach in 2023. He had her reach people and do all the things of his bidding well before I got here. She was blessing people with her energy in 1975. She was blessing people with her energy in 1963. You see what I'm saying? There were times and places and paths for her to walk and plans for her to execute, and a child for her to have, and various things that he had her do all the way up until 2016, when he was complete with her mission. So anything that happened 2017, 18, 19, 20, she was never a part of it in terms of what was written. So I, selfishly, as a person who wants her written in my story, could bring her back. But the reality is it would not be attached to God's glory, because he didn't have any plans for her past the moment that he had for her. And so when you try to assess all that, you really don't feel like the Lord would allow you to bring anybody back in exchange for you anyway. Not that that would be possible, but even if it were, it was never in his plans. So that's how I have to receive that, as I continue to live my life without the people that I love, or assessing whether or not I'm any good for desiring to stay in life. I think that that's not up to us in the first dang place, so we don't have to burden ourselves with such things. That's what I think. I think at the end of the day, we all live for the time that the Lord wants us to be alive, and we will affect what's in our timeline. But if for some reason we cheat death, it wasn't actually cheating death at all, because you were written to do just that. You're still alive. He's not done with you. You never were going to die. Not until you actually did, because that's the timeline that he gave you. And I think about all of that, and I think about where money comes in. Where does money come in? Can I pay for more life? Can I take my coins to the Lord and pay for more life, or pay for a new path? You know what I'm saying? If he only wants me to live past today, can I give him a couple bucks to see if we can extend that? No. What's the answer to that? No. Which is why I don't put a lot of emphasis on money, despite people having so much of it in some places and people having so little in others. Because I know money is really just about the agreement to not only harbor it, hoard it, but protect it, but the grace to part ways with it at any time you like. And that any time you like part gives you a freedom with money to either share it, hoard it, do with it what you want, value it, not value it, have it, simply not. There's never been a billionaire who couldn't give away all his money if he chose to. Never would he choose to. But the point is that he's not attached to him without his choice to it. Your grace to those who don't have it, when you have it, is yours to give. And as I look at that power on this earth, and I look at how rare it is, and then I think about the pin needle analogy that's in the Bible somewhere, where it says it's very difficult for a rich man to get through the eye of a pin needle than to get into heaven. Much more difficult, rather. And I say, or the reason why I would think that would be within the confines of my own understanding, where Brandon's brain goes when I hear stuff like that, is the grace I have to give when I have so much. And the rarity of that grace and the agreement in place for all time to never do that. Very few have given their money completely away because obviously it's not responsible. And two, even if they did, they can never feed everybody. And if they even had enough to feed everybody, they couldn't feed them for the rest of their lives. And if they could, those individuals are too busy building something so big that they would never likely look at someone's life or a set of villages' lives as a reason enough to give away all that they've built when what they've built is so massive to begin with. Those who are capable of accumulating so much often see no fruit in giving it away, especially to those who can't produce themselves. It becomes about production and value. How much can the person I'm paying make more money for me? But when you remove the scale of money, which we never do, in fact, we rather even fathom of such, you start to find the fruit in things that don't have to have that scale attached to it. Empathy for people who have a lot more than you. Responsibility to listen to people who don't have as much as you. Things of that nature, so you can take from them what it is that their position allows you to receive. When we don't value those things because of money, we often leave that value on the table. Lessons that help us live, lessons that help us connect with others, lessons that help us feel better about who we see in the mirror, lessons about how to keep our money, or how to help others make it grow, or how to strengthen the environment around us so that we're not as much of a target when we have so much of it. These are things that I fathom because I know the poor eat the rich. A lot of times because the rich don't desire to break bread with the poor. But how do you break bread? Well, when you remove the scale of money and don't make it about money, you break bread by providing the energy you have that can cater to the environment itself. And if the removal of classism is possible, the person who has a lot can help the person who has a little. And maybe no bread was exchanged. I fathom that because at the very least, once we get to a point where we can start loving one another, then we'll start seeing people who have a lot share and see the value of investing in the compassion that comes from within those who don't have as much, who extend to them a compassion that they would otherwise not receive if not for the importance of money that we agree upon. You touch the lives of those who have from where you are, and they will touch your lives too, because they'll see to it that your lives will be worthy, so to speak, of being saved. It's a cruel world when some have that type of control over others, but I think that's what compassion is about. The Lord knows the scales we're in. He knows some have more than others. And He helped me understand how to help ourselves to what it is they have without facing the consequences of being thieves. It starts with being compassionate. It starts by connecting with people and not valuing their money over what it is they can provide in prayer, and energy of support, and compassion, and appreciation. It's not discarding of either your or their feelings when dealing with what it is that they have in terms of resources. Because even though they have resources, it's only at the whim of them sharing those resources. So you got to touch their heart to get them to do so, just as if someone would need to touch your heart to make you generous with whatever it is you have. That is how we open up the floodgates on what I believe is a disadvantage for a lot of people in this world, where so many have so much but are afraid to share. So many have so little but don't have any connection to helping themselves to what it is that they've been depraved of. And corruption stands between us, and classism stands between us and that. Understanding how to undo that corruption and fear between the classes to keep us from thinking that one another is human. Rich people aren't human, we got to take from them, etc. Poor people aren't human, we got to stay away from them, etc. I was listening to one of my favorite MCs. I don't remember who it was, which one of the ones in the group, but it was somebody, and it's Griselda. And he was saying, keep these broke ends away from me, Lord. It's one of the things he said. And I'm realizing this brother is praying my spirit away from his just because he's afraid I'm going to rob him. Like literally that. And I'm singing the song along with him. I'm like, keep these broke ends away from me, Lord. But I realize it's like, no, Lord, we need to change our mindset so that they're not fearful of what it is that we could take from them. And we're not fearful that we're never going to be able to get what it is that they have. We need to break that classism down. We need to remove the importance of money when we know there's a God in between us that is much more important than that. And he can exchange money between my hands and your hands, trading places style, just the same as the day turns night. The rich can be poor and the poor can be rich just as quick. MOAS, the very thing that I'm involved in, will prove that someday. How fast money and wealth can exchange in mass amounts. It's not about money. If the money exchanges is going to be the same scale, now it's going to be those who used to be rich trying to appeal to the now new rich to help break bread. And this is how you're going to do it. This is how. I've been talking about it for the last 30 minutes. You remove the importance of that and you bring in compassion. We're all raising children. And you know what I need, even though I probably ain't going to have it? Somebody rich to help raise my kids. Not to say that it's ever going to come my way. It's not. But it's what's needed. It's what's required. It's what we all need. We need each other to raise each other's children, each other to provide each other resources, because some of us have a lot more than others and everybody needs to eat. And in a place of compassion, simple, animalistic compassion will assure that those who have a lot will share with everybody who has nothing, and we'll all eat. But it's that lack of compassion in the culture from which that compassion is not present that is in the way. It's in the way. Every classism situation, every I'm better than you situation, every you can't sit with me situation, every main character situation comes down to the same thing. Keeping them away from me, Lord, so that I can't be a blessing to them. They can't be a blessing to me. The confusion of danger and fear is in between us, and Satan is there dancing just the same. And this is what keeps the bull crap going. Your kids get the money, stay away from my kids. We all fear each other forever because of greed, and different sins. But there's an opposite to sin. It ain't just sin. Just like we close the door to sin, we also close the door to the possibility of the opposite of such when we know that they come through the same door. And so what I say is we got to change the culture. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of things that bleed through when we try to change the culture of negativity. It's going to be a lot of people who try to keep that negativity going. They'll fight tooth and nail to keep horror going. But at the end of the day, when you shun the culture, after a while, they just bleed out. They are not going to be part of what we're doing when they want to keep the negative going. When we don't agree to the negativity as a people, we see through keeping that going because we know the truth. That everything that we have can be taken away. Everything that we don't have can be given to us. What you got can be given to me. I can get something and give it to you. It's all about an agreement. And we got a lot of people in place making those agreements very difficult because of hypothetical circumstances that have taken place in the past that allow us to be legal about things. Certain agreements are like, yo, we've learned certain lessons. We don't do that anymore. And it removes the compassion and the willingness for some to share with others, if not for it not being wise to do so. And what is the wise in it? Compassion should always be wise because it brings you great energy. It makes it so that you don't deserve to get punched in the eye, but we're not coercing ourselves into spaces where we bring good energy to us, just the ability to protect ourselves from things that we fear as opposed to trying to face it and dominating it. You know, I pray that the Lord could take some of these concepts I have in my heart and give it to others, because I don't think it can do much good just sitting in my mindset. And I pray for those who are smart, very smart, who have learned lessons that would otherwise put them in positions to know better than to do whatever it is I'm going to do next. I don't know what's right in a lot of cases because I'm only 38. Just like I was only 38 years ago. Even though I thought I had a lot to share, in a lot of cases I felt I did, but certain things it was more for me to learn. I couldn't give them everything they needed because it was still more for me to learn. But as I continued to live, there was more and more for me to say. As the Lord continued to put me through things, and as I continued to put myself through things, I would get lessons that would provide me more context to provide answers. And those answers keep coming now, man. They keep coming because the answer that I got to my situation this morning was the Lord was over there. That's the difference. You need to bring him over here next time you have a conversation involving him. That's the difference. So I want people to understand where I'm at, man. My problem is still just the same. I don't feel any anxiety that I felt 24 hours ago in regards to those problems because I've approached it as spiritually different. I have the same anxieties to a degree, although they're not in the forefront at the moment. And I'm thankful for that because this is a place of peace for me, a sanctuary, so to speak. And so, you know, safe space, however people call that. This is what this is. And I really don't think much of the negative consequences of what could happen in regards to my voice or the vulnerability of showing myself in this way to people, because I'm healing, man. I'm healing. Whatever happens after the fact, you're going to see a better person because of all these damn therapy sessions that I forced myself to do when I was either feeling great or feeling bad or somewhere in between. And so that's what I'm happy. I'm seeing others do the same thing, not being so worried about their image in regards to what people are going to think about them being vulnerable. All they're going to do in regards to that is see yet another example of where they can do that. When you start making that normal, then people start utilizing it a bit more normally. The internet is not your therapist. Why not? People get on screen and will bend over for pennies on the dollar just in the name of the dollar. Ain't comfortable about it at all. Ruining their mental health in some cases just to try to get a buck on this internet. And you trying to tell me I can't get on here and talk about what it is I feel for the sake of a betterment in my mental health, and we use this thing to deteriorate our mental health every day? You're not going to make that make sense to me. You're not. It's because I'm fearful of being judged. I'll be judged anyway. Hell, I'm going to be judged for what I don't do if I'm Kyrie Irving, because they're going to take my image and do all kinds of lies with it. And I'm supposed to be more fearful of that, or rather be more fearful of what comes out of my mouth authentically than what it is that they're going to mold me to be in y'all eyes. Yeah, no, you ain't going to make that make sense. That's bad culture. There's nothing that's going to come out of my mouth that's going to be more offensive to you than what it is that they're doing to me in front of you. Nothing. Give that some thought. And I say that from a space that I don't live, but I speak for some in regards to a position that I think I see in regards to Kai's. Ain't nothing he gonna say to us that's gonna be more offensive to what they say about him. It's real stuff. And so as far as everything else, man, listen, I want to double back and encourage people to go back and watch that movie he posted. Go back and watch Hebrews to Negroes. I did. Go back and watch it. Now, when the controversy's down, when nobody's telling you it's the worst thing in the world, when nobody's looking, this is the time to go back and watch it. Right now. In this flurry. Set aside 3 hours of your own time and see what the heck was in that damn movie. And keep an open mind. And say a prayer if you believe in God first and after. Both. If you believe in God, pray both. You know what I mean? Because I'm telling you, you're gonna see some stuff in there. If you're open-minded enough, whether you believe in this or not, whether you hate people or love people or not, you're gonna see some stuff in there that's gonna make you go, you know what? Okay. That's exactly what a open mind is going to do with some of that information. You know what? Oh no. That's the only logical thing your brain is going to do. BDF 44. I thank you all for watching. I'm out.